Welcome to the basketball party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Is Rudy Gobert still underrated off his Defensive Player of the Year? That and much more on today's Minnesota basketball party.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up? It's Wolves Talk every Wednesday here in the Minnesota Basketball Party, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and that's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch today. For your second, check out Locked On Wolves. Great daily Wolves content from Ben Beacon over at Locked On Wolves. He is a part-time off-season panelist on the show, not here today. We miss Ben, but go check him out on Locked On Wolves wherever you get your podcast. Rudy Gobert is boxing. He's trying to get ready for the season, maybe for his next tussle with Draymond Green. We'll talk more Rudy big picture. Is he still an underrated player in the league coming off a Defensive Player of the Year effort? Who will the Timberwolves miss the most? I posed that question to the group of the players that departed. We'll have the latest on the Minnesota Lynx as their regular season winds down. And at the end of the show, I will play Like 'em or Don't Like 'em with the guys who you'll meet in a second. But first, we are brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Let's meet today's panel of experts with our opening tip.
I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers wide receiver, Gophers Hall of Famer. And I got to talk about why Rudy Gobert reminds me of a Street Fighter character, Dhalsim. But there's a difference between the two. Rudy, if you want to be successful, better get on Street Fighter and figure out what this guy did right. I'll explain that one.
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, former editor-in-chief at Canasupis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think the Timberwolves are going to learn the value of some innings eaters and why that may be a tough void to fill for them this coming season.
Innings eaters after Mike Conley threw the first pitch at the Twins game. I see what you're doing there, Jack. I see it. But Rudy Gobert in the gym, putting the gloves on. But I think he's still going to be fighting off haters.
And I'm Sam Ekstrom, executive producer here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, trying to guide the show like the great Mike Conley, make sure that I don't turn the ball over. So Rudy Gobert is in the gym. He is MMAing, kickboxing, sparring, whatever you want to call it, with UFC heavyweight champion, hopefully I'm getting the name right, Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane is what I'm going with. Not a great MMA mind. Got me thinking about the weird Rudy Gobert offseason. He wins a Defensive Player of the Year, and then a couple games later, he's suddenly in the meat grinder again because Luka Doncic cooks him in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And the narrative around Gobert after that award, it all went south. And the offseason's been weird too. He was kind of usurped in the Olympics. You've had numerous players taking shots at him, saying, hey, this guy's overrated. Rudy Gobert, gets played off the floor. I think Shaq said something controversial. Inside the NBA doesn't like him. No one likes Rudy Gobert, even though he had one of the great bounce-back seasons we've seen in a while last year. So, Ron, is Rudy Gobert still underrated? And what is the boxing going to do for him this next year?
Boxing might get him knocked out because now people think, oh, he wants to fight. Okay, let's see what happens. It's like people say, don't get a gun if you ain't ready to shoot somebody. Like don't pull it out. Keep your guns hidden. Like if people think you're docile and you ain't, he should be like is
that what they say, Ron? That's
what they say. Don't flash the gun if you're not trying to do something with it. Like leave it in your pockets, man. I just don't know. But if you remember the movie Jurassic Park, I don't forget what those things are called, but the nice ones that walk around, they got the long necks, they eat the vegetables.
Yeah.
Like
Brontosaurus, maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's nobody's bothering them. Like that's what Rudy reminds me of, a Brontosaurus. Brontosaurus Gobert. Like nobody's gonna bother him. He's docile. He's just walking by, eating leaves. And then all of a sudden, the Tyrannosaurus Draymond comes by and like wants to kill him, and he has to like run for his life. You pick up a weapon and now the Tyrannosaurus Rex is gonna attack you. Like, you just chill out. But I will say, Dawson in Street Fighter, for those who remember, he was a yogi. He had the ability to like stretch his arms super long. So Rudy's best asset is length. If he really truly thinks he's gonna do this, you better keep Draymond at an arm's length, because we know we've seen Jordan Poole get knocked out when he got close. So you better keep him at arm's length. All your haters, like Rudy said, is coming, or Reggie said is coming for Rudy. Keep him at arm's length. He's got the length. He's got the arms. He's got the long legs. Dawson used to be able to kick, and he can kick you from across the room. But when you got close up and you can kick, like he was done. And so I just feel like Rudy Gobert, one, don't pick the gloves up unless you're really trying to do something. But two, here's where I go with this underrated thing. I don't think he's underrated. I think he's rated. I think the fact that his age, if Rudy Gobert was younger, I think people would be giving more credit. The fact that he's getting older, you're not seeing him play as much. You're seeing like just over time, like the load management, the knees, everything in the Olympics. I just think people are like, you know what? There's got to be a younger guy that's gonna be out here ready to go. And maybe you saw the France Twin Towers. I think they're giving it to his boy. Like I think everybody's thinking Wemby is, like, with his ability to block, is a defensive player of the year. And I don't know if Cooper Flagg's gonna enter the league the way he's been showing, like in high school, and then we'll see what happens in college. But that's a guy that can get some blocks too. So I know he's an up-and-coming guy, but Rudy is not underrated in my opinion. I just think his age.
32 years of age going into this season. Jack Borman, what do you got?
Yeah, I think Rudy Gobert nailed it with the tweet that he said in response to Shaq, who called Rudy Gobert the worst worst NBA player of all time.
Shaq don't like Rudy.
Shaq's just pocket watching, frankly. Like, I think Shaq's just really, and a lot of other players around the league are really frustrated that someone like Rudy Gobert, who doesn't have, easily evident, flashy offensive skills, doesn't really have a jumper, doesn't dominate in the post, doesn't dunk on everyone. Yet he's made, a ton of money over the course of his career, which I just think really frustrates his peers. And it's unfortunate, because I think, there's a beauty in the details of how he plays on both ends of the floor, and, doing all the little things and making life easier for everyone. And, how many games did we, I know none of you, Sam, we were on the postcast with me a few times. I mean, there were so many games last season where, Luke and I would just say, man, they don't win this game without Rudy Gobert and what he did throughout the course of a game. And, so in that regard, I think he's absolutely still underrated. But I think the great thing is that, while no one will come out and say it directly, I think we all know that players across the NBA really do respect Rudy Gobert deep down, because how many times do you see players really go at him at the rim? And how many times do you see Rudy Gobert on an island and a guy just settle for a step back jumper because they don't want to go and attack Rudy, downhill? How many times do we see KD settle for jumpers in isolation against Rudy Gobert in that first round playoff series and just clank, 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 because he didn't want to attack him. And so, yeah, I think Rudy's saying that it was sad that someone who has accomplished as much as Shaq did, and both in sport and business, still be triggered by another man's finances and accomplishments. I get the entertainment part, but unlike other folks, you don't need that stuff to stay relevant. I thought that was right on the head. And one thing that I'm really interested to see too is Timberwolves play on TNT 8 times this coming regular season. And I don't know if, how public this was made when it happened, but the Timberwolves absolutely boycotted inside the NBA after they won Game 4 in Dallas. And we asked, we asked players and said, hey, why did no one go up there on purpose? And they all said, yeah, like, they're coming at Rudy and they're saying things that are wildly harsh and unfair about Rudy Gobert, and that's our brother, and we're going to stick up for him. And I thought that was a really cool, display of solidarity from his Timberwolves teammates who all, really love and appreciate what he does, for the team on an everyday basis. So I'm really intrigued to see if the Timberwolves just say, you know what, to hell with this, screw these inside the NBA guys. We don't need to go talk to Chuck and Shaq and give them a platform to continue to disparage Rudy Gobert in the way that they have. Because I would say, like, even if a star player doesn't play super well, I still think a lot of the comments that Draymond and Shaq made, throughout the last 6-12 months have just been pretty out of bounds about really any player.
Yeah, tough to know what to do in that situation, because like you said, they're going to be faced with this another 8 times this year. Like, if there's a bully in school, sometimes just talking to the bully like neutralizes the whole thing. Maybe you go and you do the interview and you're really nice and you force them to look you in the eye and say the things that they're saying. If you avoid them, it might give them more fodder, more freedom to continue saying the things they say. So I don't know how the Wolves will handle it this year. I think that's going to be an interesting subplot, Jack. You're right. Reggie Wilson, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mentioned the boxing. I don't know that it's anything more than just some good cardio and just some good training because I don't know that it's going to help his hands. I don't know that it's going to help him fight off people more and beat up people like Draymond. I think that was probably like his response, like, "Hey man, look, I'm really in the gym with it. Keep trying me if you want to, but I'm out here, boxing, I'm fighting. Like if you want to pick a fight next time, I got something for that." And I think it's interesting though, just to see that because players don't fear Rudy. Like players think he's soft, and he's just become a bit of a, for lack of a better pun, a punching bag, verbally for so many different people. And I just think that, somebody who is as accomplished as Rudy, 4-time defensive player of the year, like should probably get a little bit more respect. But here's the thing, Rudy plays at his best in the regular season. And when the postseason happens, kind of glossed over it in that first series because it happened so fast with the sweep over Phoenix. But then once it kind of got towards the second round series against the Nuggets, and Rudy had the baby, and they played so well without him, it was an interesting dynamic that started to happen, and it was really interesting moving forward to that Dallas series. I thought that it was a little bit unfair. Even Shaq, I don't think you expect Shaq to be able to guard Penny Hardaway on the perimeter. Like I don't think that you want your big man isolated on an island with any preeminent guard of this generation. Like I don't think you want that. And him one-on-one against Luka was going to be a losing effort every time. But for some reason, because it was Rudy, everybody just cooked him, even after he got cooked by Luka. And I think it's just people expect more from the defensive player of the year. But, as we've talked about many times on this pod, like Rudy's greatness on the defensive end is not just in isolation. It's not just in one-on-one defense. It's how he galvanizes the team defense and how he kind of plays free safety a bit to, as Jack said, kind of scare offensive players away from, trying it and maybe settling for jumpers and not trying to go at Rudy in the paint. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who really tried to attack Rudy in the lane, in the paint. And that's telling as well. But, you get these isolated incidents like Rudy getting matched up one-on-one with Luka on the perimeter and him, just putting him in a blender and all that. And those make the highlights, but you don't see the other things. Now, look, Rudy doesn't have a really like in-depth offensive bag, doesn't have much of an offensive bag in general. And we saw that kind of take away from his playing time in the Olympics. And they don't require him to do a whole lot on the offensive end, but maybe catch some lobs. And, I know we saw a couple times in the playoffs where he was kind of making some shots happen. It was like, whoa, okay, Rudy. So I don't know that Rudy is underrated. I think he is a solid basketball player who has his deficiencies. But when those deficiencies are put on Front Street, they just seem a lot louder than maybe they should be. I kind of feel bad for all the heat that he takes because it just seems like low-hanging fruit at this point.
There's just no one really like him in the NBA, and there hasn't been a lot of players like him in NBA history. Someone who is honestly like deficient in a lot of ways at the offensive end and just unbelievably impactful at the defensive end. and he finds a way to affect winning in a positive way. Really unique, really polarizing. It's interesting to have a lightning rod like that on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Gives us something to talk about in September in the offseason. When we return, who will you miss the most? Jordan McLaughlin or Kyle Anderson? We'll talk about a couple departed Wolves next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Oh, do I have some great deals for you at the Game Time app? I just opened it up. Minnesota Twins tonight taking on the Angels. $10. Get in the door. Are you kidding me? $10 to go to Target Field on a beautiful summer night. Take advantage of that. How about the Gophers Saturday afternoon against Nevada? $14 to get into Huntington Bank Stadium. You've also got options to go see the Lynx on Friday and the Vikings on Sunday against the 49ers. And I love how easy the Game Time app is. It knows where I live. It's got the location, shows me all the venues in town, the best prices. It filters out the fluff with Game Time picks. So many great features. Toggle on the all-in pricing, get views from your seats, and the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Game Time simply takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, welcome back, Minnesota Basketball Party. We're glad you're with us here on Locked On Sports Minnesota, where we have all sorts of great programming. We are live on the Minnesota Football Party Mondays and Thursdays. Ron Johnson Show actually dropping later today with guest Daniel Jackson, and the Roundtable on Friday with Reggie Wilson, Julia Daniels, Ron Johnson, and myself. Segment 2, we get into which Timberwolf you're going to miss the most. I'm tossing Wendell Moore. Sorry, Wendell. You didn't really play. I'm tossing Monte Morris. Sorry, Monte. You didn't work out. There are 2 notable Wolves that left this team. Jordan McLaughlin to the Kings and Kyle Anderson to the Warriors, right? I think it was the Warriors. Jack, we start with you. Who are you going to miss the most? And when in particular will you miss them during the season?
Yeah, it's hard, obviously. I think just because a lot of people have such an affinity for Jordan McLaughlin, and deservedly so. But I think for me, it's going to be Kyle Anderson, and I think that it's hard to find a role player who, on certain nights, can be one of your 2 or 3 most important players, depending on a matchup. But I truly think that Kyle Anderson is one of those guys, and that he is just a really crucial Swiss Army knife defensively for this team that spent a lot of time guarding some of the most important stars in the West and did a great job in doing so. And now when he's not going to be there, the onus is going to shift onto guys that maybe aren't best suited for it. I think, we spent a ton of time guarding guys like Jokic, obviously. Karl, funny enough, statistically is the best Nikola Jokic defender in the NBA. So that one's a somewhat easier one to fill, but we saw in the Dallas series, he was incredible defending Luka Doncic. He has been the Timberwolves' best option for guarding other guys like Zion and Kawhi and Kevin Durant and LeBron. And now, you're going to ask either Cat or TJ Shannon or Ant or Nickeil Alexander-Walker to do a lot of that, because we know that Joe Ingles isn't going to step up and be doing a lot of that. Certainly Jaden McDaniels could be doing a lot of that, but I think in many cases you want to keep Jaden McDaniels guarding the opposing team's lead ball handler or point guard, just so that he's most disruptive at the point of attack and maybe doesn't have quite the risk of getting in foul trouble. And so I think Kyle Anderson is just kind of your quintessential innings eater, right? In that, you feel really comfortable playing him anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes a game, depending on the matchup. And is certainly a guy that you could plug in and guard any one of those guys, especially when you're in a stretch where you're on the 3rd game in 5 nights, you're on the 4th game in 6 or 7 nights. And, and you've got in your stretch playing in the Western Conference, there's not really too many nights off where you're going against some serious star power, and he can really take a load off of Anthony Edwards or Jaden McDaniels or Karl Anthony Towns' shoulders, and allow those guys to be more impactful with the ball in their hands offensively. So I think, and then you also mentioned the way that he's able to handle the ball and be a guy that can take pressure off of Mike Conley on the offensive end of the floor and allow Mike Conley to spot up, shoot threes where, he shot over 45% on catch and shoot threes last year. So I think there's going to be some figuring out to do. And I think with both of these guys, what's really tough is that, the primary guy that you're going to be filling those minutes with most likely are two rookies, and TJ Shannon for Kyle Anderson and Rob Dillingham for Jordan McLaughlin. So I certainly think there's going to be some growing pains with those two guys ascending into those roles early on in the season. But again, the hope is that those guys are quick learners, and ultimately they'll obviously have higher ceilings than those two guys, at least Dillingham over McLaughlin for sure. So it's just a matter of, I guess, are they closer to their ceiling or closer to their floor in those respective roles as rookies?
Reg.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anything more than Jack. I think, Jordan McLaughlin was a great guy to root for and kind of became a fan favorite, and, kind of carved out a niche and some minutes for himself when he did get the minutes. But man, I'm sure this just grieved Chris Finch in the worst way to lose Slow-Mo. Like, he loved Kyle Anderson. Like when Rudy went out in the playoffs, as I mentioned, he almost like salivated at talking about, oh yeah, that means we get a chance to put Kyle in there and get his playmaking ability on the floor. And he loved him, even when there were a chorus of Timberwolves fans just calling for Kyle to be benched and not to be played, because there was a time where, Kyle was kind of, spazzing. Yeah, Ron. Kyle was kind of spazzing out there on the floor and kind of giving them bad minutes. Like, Finchy stuck with him. And, in the playoffs, he gave the Wolves some really good minutes. And so, we talked about guys like Terrence Shannon and him being a little bit older and a little bit more mature because he's played a little bit more basketball than maybe Rob Dillingham and maybe some of the other rookies coming into the league. And that's a lot to put on him. And I don't think that all of it is going to be put on him to try to replace or replicate what Slow-Mo did. And I think it'll be a little bit of a two situation. I think some of the playmaking ability from Slow-Mo you'll try to replace with Dillingham's minutes, and then some of the shot making ability, maybe even more so than Anderson had. I think you look at Terrence Shannon to be able to do, but yeah, that Kyle Anderson loss is pretty immense considering his role over the last few years in Finchy's system, on both ends of the floor. He gave good minutes, guarding Jokic as well in the playoffs. So, I think that's going to be a tough one to overcome, and I think that's probably the biggest loss for the Wolves.
There's no way that we're going to get Ron to say he's going to miss Slow-Mo, right?
Not a chance. Here's where I go. I will miss watching the game slow down a little bit, because sometimes life goes fast, and Kyle Anderson reminds you that sometimes you have to soak in the moments. Like, there's no reason for a fast break if there's 3-on-1. Just slow it down a little bit. Like, but no. So here's what I will say: Kyle Anderson does make the right play, but he makes it slow. But he makes the right play, and I think they'll miss that. They'll miss knowing 9 times out of 10 they have a guy on the court that's going to make the right play. Sometimes not shooting the ball is a negative, but at the same time, he always was looking for the next pass, and so I'll give him that. You look at, like, are they going to miss him? And I need to put my glasses on because I'm getting old. So looking at the stats, when you see what he did last year, 79 games played, like Reggie said, critical minutes, 22 minutes a game, but 6.4 points. Are they going to miss that? No. I think Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham are going to easily be able to replace that, if not more. They're going to be more reluctant to they're going to be more willing to shoot the ball. You look at his 46% field goal percentage. We'll see what clip they're at. It's 3.5 rebounds. That is big. His assists, and that's where I go with that. He was always willing to pass the ball. He was always close to 5 assists the last 2 seasons. right at 4.2 and 4.9. So this is a guy like the last 2 years that is a very willing passer. That's where I think he'll be missed. Dillingham and Shannon, I'm not sure. Shannon, I think, is going to pass more than Dillingham, but we'll see what that looks like as Finch gets them in the offense. But is he going to be missed? I'd say him over Jordan McLaughlin. Jordan McLaughlin, thanks for coming. Thanks for playing. It's like the games you play at the state fair. Like, you don't win. All right, next person, give me your $2. I think he was a great piece we thought he was going to be. And then again, it was games where you see him pass up shots and not take them. So I think getting the younger guys in there that are a little bit more, they're not gun shy, more willing to attack. Growing up in this AAU, I don't respect you mentality where they don't care. I'm not saying they won't be missed as a person. Like Reggie said, he loved Kyle Anderson. So I think personally he'll miss him, but replacing that 6 points, I don't think that's going to be hard to do. The 5 assists, possibly.
I'm higher on J-Mac than most. I can't ignore a 52% rate on 3-point shots from January 20th on. That's like a 4-month stretch almost where he shot better than 50% from 3. Also, tied for 8th last year among all NBA players with 500 or more minutes in offensive rating. That's not that small of a sample size. Tied for 8th in offensive rating. He made stuff happen on the offensive end, created flow offensively. He's been trusted in his career to be a playoff point guard on the floor in key moments. Now, he wasn't really last year, but in the Memphis series, if we remember, like that was J-Mac. So I think you're going to miss his steadiness on the offensive end, and certainly you're going to miss 50% shooting from 3-point range. Mr. Reliable from beyond the arc. And all the things you guys said about Slow-Mo are true. His versatility, his size, the defensive prowess, all of that's super valuable. But you're going to miss that offensive spark, too, from J-Mac if you have moments where Dillingham is struggling. Dillingham's in a cold streak. You're not getting that off the bench from him. So I think that there's something to be lost with J-Mac as well that you're going to miss if you're a Timberwolves fan. We pivot to the W next. WNBA talk. Regular season winding down. Lynx keep winning. Our weekly Lynx latest coming up next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Today's show brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, little Lynx talk. Minnesota Lynx continue to win. Another one last night. Reggie Wilson, what's the latest with our favorite WNBA squad?
They just keep winning, baby. 4 straight wins, 3 on the road, coming back home, and it's all working well. Fee won Western Conference Player of the Week for the 3rd time this season, and she came out, was a little modest at 14 points, 8 boards, like modest. Wasn't the 22 that she was averaging that won her Conference Player of the Week for the 3rd time. Funny enough, Caitlin Clark has won Conference Player of the Week 3 straight weeks. Guess that's the first time that's ever been done, which is incredible. She's heating up at the right time. But so are the Lynx. I think it's going to be interesting. Liberty, they play the Liberty in a few games, and that's going to be a test because the Liberty are also on fire right now and look like the favorite to win the NBA championship. But I think that'll be an early test before the playoffs start. Well, we got 4 more games left of the regular season, and they're peaking at the right time. Headed into that game last night, they had a 4-game lead at the top of the West. And so, look, they got 14 from Bridget Carlton last night, 15 from Kayla McBuckets. Like, when you have a balanced performance like that and you are not having to rely on Fee to score you 25, 30 points a night, which she can do, but when you're not relying on that and you're still beating a team, by close to double digits, I think that is a testament to how good this team is. And I keep saying it, but them getting Maisha Hines-Allen in the trade just seems to be like the big addition headed into the playoffs. And I think that's going to be something that really helps them as they get into the playoffs and try to make a run at another ring.
The way the bracket looks right now, Ron, it's not impossible that the Lynx could have Caitlin Clark in the first round of the playoffs. Would you embrace that challenge?
Oh yeah, come on now. Like, she's good. Feels like looks like she's starting to get it figured out now. They are the 6th seed. The Lynx are the 2nd seed. But this is where I go with that. When you look at what they're doing, and Reggie pointed this out, to win 11 of the 12 games you played is absolute nuts. Like, that's just on fire. Like, I don't care what sport you play. I don't know what you do. If you win 11 out of 12, you're on fire. So yeah, they've hit the stride at the right time. Some people win early and then lose late. This team feels like they figured it out. And again, I've only been to 2 games, but the ones I've been to, it seems to be like they have really good chemistry. They spread the floor out well. They're all playing for each other. They're all looking for that. Like, after the steal, they're all looking for that, like, get out, spread out. Let's create. Let's not all run to the middle of the lane and just somebody's trying to score. It's like, if you know they're going to crash, you got to be over there because I'm going to kick it out to you. And it seems like everybody's on the same page. So it's just beautiful basketball to see. And like Reggie said, Nafisa Collier is an absolute beast. Like, I did not believe it. You see the stats, you see the conversation, but when you watch it, you're like, man, like, are they playing a different speed? Because it just feels like she's at a different speed than them. Like, I feel like she's put herself up there as one of the top 3 players in this league, just because the speed in which she plays. And it's real, like, it's not like super fast, it's just controlled. Like, she just feels like she's one step ahead. So I think there's a team that can do it. And honestly, Lynx versus Caitlin Clark, that's just another way to sell tickets. Like, you're going to sell a crap ton of tickets with that. So I think that's what, if you want that, that's what you want. Like, you want to get the star that's going to help you sell your tickets.
Lynx still super under bet on the betting markets at FanDuel. They're 3rd behind the Aces. People still betting the Aces, who really haven't turned it on after the All-Star break. Jack, what do you got?
Yeah, I'd say bring on the Fever, because I think the Fever are a great matchup for the Lynx, because the Fever don't play a lick of defense, and the Lynx share the ball better than any team in the WNBA, and their unselfish and connected offenses won out in each of the last 2 times they've played the Fever since the All-Star break. I think the Fever are 8-2 since the All-Star break, or since the Olympic break, and both losses have been to the Lynx. So I think that would be a great matchup for the Lynx. I mean, the Fever don't have anybody that can hold a candle to Nafisa Collier defensively. And I think Nafisa Collier is by a mile the best player in that series, if that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I think, Reg talked about it. I think the most surprising thing for me over the last, week, 10 days, as it pertains to the Lynx, has just been, that Maisha Hines-Allen has completely knocked Diamond Miller, the number 2 pick in the 2023 WNBA draft, just out of the rotation completely. I thought that, Hines-Allen would play a little bit more sparingly and that it would be more matchup dependent. She's a really big and physical and strong 4 that I think would really help them on the glass, especially on nights when they're playing a team like the Liberty that is a really, or the Sun that is a really physical, or the Storm even, three teams that are really physical inside, have a lot of size that can bother you. I thought she'd play more in those matchups and maybe, play a little bit less against teams that are more spread out and like to play quicker and space the floor. But yeah, I mean, it's just been kind of crazy to see Diamond Miller completely out of the rotation. I mean, last season she started all 32 games that she played in and played 26 minutes a game. And this season she's only started 3 times in 18 games that she's played less than 11 minutes per game. That's a pretty stark drop off. And so far through her career, she's played in just 50 of a possible 86 games. And so I think it's just been difficult for Diamond to really find her footing, because it seems like, whenever she's really starting to, have an opportunity to have this runway to play more minutes and find more of a rhythm, she's gotten hurt again, which has been really, really unfortunate. And so normally that's why it's helpful when American players can go and play overseas and kind of be the go-to option that they look to. But she tore a meniscus, overseas last year in Hungary, which was a huge bummer. But the other thing that's really stood out to me is just how balanced their scoring has been as a starting five. I think four of their 5 starters have been in double figures since the Olympic break, which I just think takes a ton of pressure off the bench to have to come in and score at a really high level. And I think you really only need one of Maisha Hines-Allen or Natisha Heidemann or Dorky Juhas or Chechi Zandalcini to score 8, 10, 12 points in a given game, which I think is huge. It allows them to really play more of the, the games that they like to play individually. I think, when you look at Hines-Allen allows her to just kind of fill different gaps defensively and offensively and set really good screens and cut nicely. And Heidemann can be more of a distributor and catch and shoot, spot up open threes. And Zandalcini can just hunt threes. And then, Juhas can really take advantage of teams that have smaller fives. I think she's one of the biggest backup fives in the WNBA. So it just allows them to kind of play more of their game and not have to, do something that those players are not very well suited to do, which I think is a huge reason why this team also has been the team that has the highest assist to turnover ratio in the league, is that everybody on the offensive end of the floor is able to play a role that really fits their skills. And I think, when you are asking people to do things they're not comfortable doing, that's when you start seeing more turnovers. That's when you start seeing, poor spacing and inefficient offense. And that just hasn't been the case for the Lynx this season. And it's been a ton of fun to watch. And I think, obviously the 3-point shooting has been a huge part of that. And I think that the knock against the Lynx as it pertains to how do they project to play in the playoffs, or how do they project to finish when the season's all said and done? I think a lot of people have pretty quickly pointed to, the 3-point variance and the 3-point shooting will come back down to earth, and and they'll really struggle to shoot the ball from 3. And that very well could be the case. We don't know. But before the Olympic break, they were 38.4% from 3. That was best in the league. And since the break, in 11 games, they're 37.4% from 3, which is second in the league. So that hasn't happened yet. And really since the break, most of the 3-point shooters that struggled in the earlier part of the season, with the exception of Nafisa Collier, have turned it on since the Olympic break. So they're just such a fun team to watch. If you really enjoy watching teams that share the ball, that play really hard for one another on both ends of the floor, just do not give up and do not say die when things do not go their way. It's been a ton of fun to watch, and they've trailed in so many of these second halves at different points. And have just stuck to their game. They haven't tried to make up a 7-point deficit at once. They've just said, let's play our game and trust that that'll win out in the end. And then you look up at the end of the fourth quarter and they're up by 6, 7, 10, 14 points. And so just a ton of fun to watch. And I couldn't be more excited to see how the playoffs shake out.
Sky, Liberty, Sun, and Sparks, the final 4 games, a couple relatively easy ones and a couple really tough ones there before the end of the regular season on September 19th. Here's how we end the show. I've got a game. It's called Like 'em or Don't Like 'em. This is back to the NBA. Not many teams projected to win more games than the Timberwolves this year. They're second in projected wins behind the Oklahoma City Thunder in the West. But I'm going to give you a Western Conference team, and you tell me whether you'd like them or don't like them to challenge for the Western Conference title along with the Timberwolves. So, Ron, we'll start with you. I'm going to give you a team, the Los Angeles Clippers. What do you think?
Don't like them to be better than the Timberwolves. I do not. I don't know. Something about the Clippers is just weird to me. It's always going to be weird to me until they separate themselves from the Lakers. They're always going to be weird to me. But I just don't see it. I don't see many teams doing better than the Timberwolves. So, no, I don't like them.
Jack?
No, I do not see them being better than the Timberwolves. I don't know. I mean, they didn't really replace Paul George with anybody. I mean, they got Derek Jones Jr., which was a nice ad for them, but I don't think he's making up for what PG is leaving behind.
Reg?
No, I think their new arena is going to be nicer than the teams play on the court. They'll be dazzling folks, from an arena standpoint, but I don't know that the team, you're putting all of your eggs in the Kawhi Leonard basket, which, it worked out in Toronto, but we're several years and another couple injuries removed from that. situation. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the Clippers are going to do much of anything this year. So I give the Wolves the edge for sure by a pretty big margin, probably.
All right. How about the Sacramento Kings with Monk, Fox, Sabonis, and now DeRozan? Jack.
Yeah, I think this is a funner conversation, just because I think Sacramento could make a huge jump from where they finished last year, finishing in the 9 spot. I don't think they're going to be better than the Wolves, but it would not surprise me whatsoever if they not only jumped from ninth up into the top 6, but if they're one of those teams that are kind of in that 3, 4, 5, 6 spot, I think it would not surprise me at all, just considering how much firepower they have and that I think DeMar DeRozan is going to fit in really, really nicely to playing a little bit more up tempo, able to get out and run and transition a little bit more, play against cross match defenses and just be another guy, I think, that gives them a perimeter scoring option that makes defenses have to think about someone else other than De'Aaron Fox. So I'm going to say no, but I think that one might be a little closer than people would expect.
Reg, the Kings, like him, don't like him?
I do like them, but not as much as I like the Wolves still. I do wonder what this Kings offense is going to look like, because DeRozan has traditionally been a guy who kind of slows the offense down a little bit, holding the ball a little bit and getting into the mid-range for a shot. He's a really great mid-range shooter, but like the Kings play that up-tempo, Warriors light, approach with Mike Brown coming over from his time at Golden State. So I think they have some good pieces. I'm just interested to see how they kind of gel them together, because you still got an ascending Murray as well. He seemed like he was going on a certain track as a rookie, and then last year it seems like maybe I don't know, he took a step back per se, but didn't really do what I thought maybe they expected him to do. Was it Keegan Murray? And so I'm interested to see what happens. But on the flip side, why does no one ever want Harrison Barnes? I feel like he's like Will Smith in that skit with his dad. He was just like, how come you don't want me, man? Like the Warriors were like, oh, Kevin Durant, yeah, he's out of here. The Kings are like, DeMar DeRozan, ship him to San Antonio. So I'm not really sure why no one wants Harrison Barnes. He was a productive player for the Kings.
Mm-hmm. Ron.
So I do like DeMar DeRozan. And I'm torn because De'Aaron Fox, we know what he can be. Kevin Huerter, like they have the pieces, they have the scores. DeMar DeRozan does play that old school bully point guard ball. When I went to Chicago, using the Game Time app, I was able to check out the Chicago Bulls game when we went down there to see Spice Adams, and so we all hung out, went to the Bulls game. And DeMar DeRozan does slow the game down. I will say that, like he slows the game down. He's a bigger body guy. No, I'm going to go no. I don't think they're going to be better than the Timberwolves. I do like them with Sac. I think they're going to be in the top 4 though, but I don't think they're going to be better than Timberwolves. I think Timberwolves are going to be in that 2 or 3 spot.
And they'll get the Jordan McLaughlin bump.
The J-Mac bump. That's right. You're going to miss him. I'm telling you. The last one. The team that ousted the Wolves in the playoffs, the Dallas Mavericks, plus Klay Thompson, but down Derrick Jones Jr. They're projected, by the way, at 49.5 wins. Timberwolves at 52.5. Reg.
So this is tough because they did, send the Wolves home and they added Klay. But Klay was clanking Klay a lot last year, so I'm not really sure. I know a lot of people talked about maybe how, him just being more of a spot-up shooter and not having to try to create a shot off the dribble maybe makes him a little bit more dangerous. But I just don't know, man. I think you got another year of age with Kyrie. Is Luka gonna, continue to try to ascend, put the work in that's necessary to be great? He's out of shape a lot. Like, I don't know. I think the Timberwolves will be a little bit more hungrier. So I will give the Wolves the edge.
Okay, Ron Johnson.
I say during the regular season, I give the Wolves the edge, but I think that the Mavs are going to be right there for the playoffs again. Like, so again, you can have a great regular season. You can win 53, 54 games, 52 games, whatever you want to call it. Mavs are probably going to be right around there, 48 to 50 wins. It doesn't matter until the playoffs. Like, they were the better team last year, the Wolves were, and the Mavs sent them home. So I think the Wolves are going to be better during the regular season. Playoffs, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Kyrie and Luka seem to have, like, Kyrie's found the person that maybe not understanding a ton of English and caring about U.S. stuff and the world being flat. Like, Luka is the actual thing that Kyrie needed. Somebody who doesn't care what you're saying. Luka has no idea what you're talking about. He's like, where's Joker? Where's Jokic? I don't care what you say. But yeah, so I think those two play well together though. So, but I don't know. Playoffs, regular season, they will have a better record.
That's if he's healthy too. Like, I think his health is a big key. If Kyrie's healthy, then okay, yeah.
Jack,
Luka too. Also, he looks slow and big right now.
Settle the debate here, Jack. I think we're torn.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves are going to be the better team in the regular season. And the only reason I say that is when you look at the three stars between Ant, Cat, Rudy, and Luka, Kyrie, and Derek Lively, who I think is the third best player on that team. I
no respect for Clay.
What has Clay done the last 2 years? I just
tell everybody how many championships he's won.
He hasn't been better than Derek Lively. Like, as much as I hated Derek Lively calling out Rudy the way that he did, I just think the Timberwolves big three are going to play more games, play more minutes, and I think that's the reason why they're going to be a better team in the regular season. But come playoff time, like, I think Najee Marshall can make up for a decent amount of what Derek Jones Jr. Is taking with him to LA, and I think that just the threat of Klay Thompson as a shooter, even if he's not shooting it well, like, you never feel good about leaving that guy open. Whereas the Timberwolves felt really good about leaving Derek Jones Jr. open and forced him to make shots. And to his credit, he did make enough shots.
He made them.
But yeah, I just think, then when you help on to Klay Thompson and you've got PJ Washington there, and you just want to play an all-out offense, starting five, I just think it's going to be really tough for teams to figure that out come playoff time. But I think over the course of the regular season, I think the Timberwolves and their defense will win enough games to be better than Dallas.
Good show, gentlemen. Quick show announcement. We're going to be taking about a month hiatus on the Minnesota basketball party during this lull of the offseason. This space will be inhabited still with football content, Vikings, Gophers, as they get their seasons underway. And then we will be back full steam ahead on the Minnesota basketball party for the Timberwolves season in October. So we thank you for watching, listening, commenting, and we're not going to be gone long, just pressing the pause button on the basketball party, and we'll have football content for you at Locked On Sports Minnesota for the next handful of weeks. For Ron Johnson, Reggie Wilson, Jack Borman, I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks to the everydayers for watching. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.